Welcome back to the City, Stay, and True to Yourself podcast. It's your host, Tex Wambui, and we are back here again to facilitate the necessary discussion of valuing the self within community and how each individual journey is unique. So, today we have a special guest who has already been on the podcast. First conversation we had was really, really good conversation. It delved into the importance of following your own destination. He shared his adversity and how he is inspired to shape his ambition, and also how he has evolved into his community, and also the things he has done and he's going to accomplish. We're going to be discussing a little bit about that and delving into a conversation today. So, without further ado, I would like for Mr. Alan D. Graham III to get on the spotlight and let them know who you are, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. So, to introduce myself, my name is Alan Graham III. I'm a senior at Cheney University, Pennsylvania, the oldest HBCU, and I'm a double major in computer science and business administration. I'm a very involved student leader. I'm currently executive vice president of SGA, which is Student Government Association, among many other things. But overall, I'm just a proud man. I'm proud to be a part of the community and just make a positive impact to people. That's really what it's all about to me.
Well, Alan, it's a pleasure to have you back on the podcast, man. I appreciate you for wanting to come back and to speaking. So I remember last time we were talking about, following your destination and kind of getting to that aspect and those small things that you do. So can you provide what you've been doing lately, man? What you've been up to? What's been new? What new projects you've been working on? What's some words of wisdom you got, man? Let the world know right now.
I guess you can say recently, my fall semester finished. I think I did pretty well. I could have done better, honestly. But for the most part, I just been keeping my head up and I just been working on myself. Like every semester at college, I kind of just become a lot better of a person. And since I'm a double major, I'm graduating into fifth year. And then by the time I get to that last semester, I feel like I'm going to be fat guy in a way. I just think that, with me really dedicating and focusing on my craft and doing as much research and developing my skill set, I'm happy. I'm happy that for the most part I'll more than likely be able to come into a role, or I should be able to come into a role where I'm able to live frugally, happily. I don't have to worry about having to really strip my budget and things like that. Essentially, I just been thinking about the future. That's been my main thing. I've been doing community service. This past week, 2 weeks ago, I was volunteering for this not necessarily a program, but this cohort of students from Philadelphia who go to HBCUs in Atlanta, which is called the AUC, Atlanta University Center.
Hey, go AUC. I'm Clark Atlanta University right here,
Oh, okay, bet. But
You
yeah,
already know.
so it's pretty much students from Clark Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman, and you want to throw Morris Brown in there to show that some love.
Of course, man.
So yeah, it was mainly them that orchestrated it, and they're collaborating with they collaborated with Howard's and Xavier University's type of Philly Club thing. We call it Philly Club, but it's not anything too crazy. It's just us pretty much going to Philadelphia high schools and talking to the kids about the importance of the HBCU and how it's built us up to become Black professionals, and overall how it's really catered to our development and how it may even be a much better option than going to a PWI. So that's really what it's been about. We went to definitely 5+ schools. It might even be 10, but I definitely spent at least 30 hours doing everything. Also, there was some toy drive. So it was just a whole week of community service. And I'm looking for more. And essentially, I would say with community service, with me participating and working with them, That's kind of give me like an idea or blueprint on like how exactly community service is supposed to go. And essentially, I was like, you know what? One of the main things that's been like one of our overhead tasks for our SGA is to, you know, make finding community service a lot easier. And it isn't as simple as just asking like, those big, like I wouldn't even say companies, but like those big organizations like AmeriCorps or Power PHL. It isn't really that simple. So like you kind of have to like take our connections that we already have and like further expand it. So I was essentially thinking about, like starting my own community service organization. So I was going to talk to a couple of faculty at the school and then talk to a couple other people I know who own their own community service organization and work with that. Because, essentially us as students, I'm not sure if it's just the honor society or if it's all of us. But at the bare minimum, we need to get at least like 10 hours of community service in per semester. And it's like, I know that for the most part with community service, most people prefer people that do community service to actually be in it to do community service. Because when you're like going and you're like doing community service with the same people, build a relationship. And people want to be able to build a relationship with people that they feel though are authentic and like can count on, or like, can really be open with, like, because a lot of times like we may have, whether it be a profession or just a due diligence or like some type of duty where we have to get community service hours in, and we're just like, what, I'm gonna just do this real quick and then leave. And like, for people that are impressionable, they let you walk into their space, get their community service on, where it's like, yeah, like, this person is here, he's gotta do what he gotta do, but it's just like, dang, like, he did what he had to
Yeah.
do, but he really wasn't that sociable, or like, it felt like, how would I describe it? It felt like an interaction that kind of like took more away from you than gave to you in a way. So that's just what I've been thinking about the whole community service thing. Cause that's essentially my latest project. Cause aside from that, I just been thinking like, been pre-planning for the semester, making sure that everything that can go well can go well. I'm thinking about overloading on my classes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
So I'm just pre-planning. Well, one of the main things I definitely been trying to do is get myself into like the mindset of somebody that like, is a 4.0 student, or at least like make myself. I just pretty much been trying to gear myself into a heavy academia, because like I can absorb a high amount of information. The most important part though is keeping myself happy so that I can continue to like, have a high academic performance. Because for me, I was thinking about taking 7 classes, and like since I'm doing roll with Westchester and Cheney, I have to commute 20 minutes back and forth, and sometimes that gets really like draining. So I'm like, what? For all my extracurriculars that I sort of have to do, because like I'm part of a fraternity, which is my beloved Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. And just to reemphasize it, Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. That big D9 organization, and then like some other like activities that people are really looking forward to, like the counterculture club. I was also going to start a run club on top of that, but that's also just mainly something for my own personal development and benefit. Granted, it can also benefit the campus, because when I went to the sports conference, I met these people who like kind of run like a sneaker store, and they said they're willing to make free donations, but just need to make sure that we're actually like doing like what we got to do with the Run City brand. So like overall, I think it's just been new. Like the world is just really expansive, and there's just a lot to learn in college, and especially when you network and like those opportunities that become open. It's just a lot, and essentially pre-planning is what's helping me like pretty much take care of everything in advance, making my semester like pretty streamlined. Because like usually like the week leading up to, and sometimes it may be weeks in advance depending on the professor, they usually upload like majority of the materials for the semester that we have to do. And like as I mentioned, depending on the semester, they'll upload like the entire class for that semester like a week or two before. And whether they do or not, I'm just pretty much trying to take it upon myself to like read the material, or like essentially research and be knowledgeable about what they're talking about before I get into that classroom, because that's going to make it easier with digesting the overall information. And even then, it's just going to make everything like a lot smoother. Because it's just like, there's nothing better than preparation. Like, you know, you see, like, when a human being, like, pushes himself, like, to the limit, past the limit, and he, like, the prep, we're on the same level as a superhero. Because, like, in a way, I know a lot of us don't really look at the Justice League like that. Like, sometimes we call him Batman, but we just be like, if you're really about your stuff, you really do gotta take care of it in a way you're superhuman, or like you're at least on par with that.
I completely agree. You touched upon a lot of good points there. First is the whole aspect of the role of HBCUs and the importance they have, and also the aspect of community service. It's something that I definitely personally value, and I believe that everybody should value. And you touched upon AmeriCorps. I did AmeriCorps for 3 years actually. So that was a really interesting and eye-opening and enlightening experience that I never regret, and I will definitely use it for the rest of my life in terms of how I perceive different things and different nuances. But I want to ask you a question. You mentioned about HBCUs,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm an HBCU student right now, and I also went to a PWI for my undergrad. Can you, what unique role do HBCUs play in higher education and in the broader society?
Yeah, in a broader sense, like generally speaking, HBCUs are going to kind of cater more so to where you're at, and then bring you up to that higher standard. Because like generally with PWIs, the kind of expectation that you already know what you got to do and just do it, and you kind of just throw you into it. So certain schools will have higher like levels of rigor when it comes to like doing the schoolwork and things like that. You may have like apathetic professors, yada yada, if you happen to miss a deadline. But HBCUs kind of provide a place of nurture and understanding, because you're in an environment, presumably as a black student, where you're not a black student, you're just a student, and you're able to pretty much kind of like relate in a way. You're able to like work with professors who really do care about your success, and like overall you're able to like kind of be pitted in a way where you're challenged in a healthy sense. So like there's always going to be like the tutoring and other academic help resources available at a HBCU, especially for mine. But it's like you know you're in an environment where it's like, if you were to fall behind, people are going to ask, are you okay, do you need anything, things like that. And I don't think you probably would get that like your average like PWI institution. Because the other thing is too, as I read articles and pay attention to like how things are going in the news, and then seeing stuff about like how public school education is like kind of going down the drain in some cities or some major black cities. And it's like at an it's those students were to try and go to college, they'd be a lot better going on to an HBCU than the PWI, because at least from my standpoint, with how my school does things, they test you, they see where you are, and then depending on the course of action that you want to take, they'll try and give you like tutors to kind of boost you up to the speed to where you need to be within a semester or two's time. Or you can kind of like kind of do things based on your career path, because for the most part, our society is a lot more like faster, or I would kind of say is a lot more demanding, because like everything's expensive. We can't really like live as much unless you got like a salary, and like those are the jobs we have to like work too. Like granted, every time you go to work you're gonna have to do something, but like you know those types of
Yeah.
jobs where you're like actually like doing tangible work, like you might have to stay overtime or something like that. Like those are usually the jobs that want to pay like a lot of money. But what I was pretty much the example I was trying to get at was that with public school education, the state's only going to mandate so much, and for those students that are trying to do like STEM careers, whether it be bio or like computer science or engineering, compared to like our richer or like our counterparts that are coming from like higher quality, higher resource intense schools, they're not able to really go into those type of career fields because of what they mandate. Like as let's say like for engineering and computer science, at the bare minimum you're gonna have to take calculus 2 to 4. And some schools like public school wise, at the bare minimum mandate that you graduate, like, knowing algebra 1 or 2. And when you're in college, granted, you can kind of take that long hike up to get there, but it's like it's going to be a long and arduous journey because high school math is a lot different from college math, especially with how, like, things are structured and like how much work is given to you, because you're ultimately doing like what you would kind of do an entire school year and half of that in college per semester.
Yeah, definitely see what your point is, and it's something I definitely I inspire and aspire to continue putting a voice on. I definitely think that HBCUs have definitely contributed to the advancements of civil rights and as well as social justice movements, because without HBCUs, much progress could not have been made. And I would definitely say, as a proud Clark Atlanta University student, it's where W.E. Du Bois did his research and statistical work and provided progress in advancing civil rights and social justice for the African American community, as well as other communities that can utilize that story. And I also do think HBCUs do offer the aspect of nurturing leadership as well as entrepreneurial skills within their student bodies. At Clark Atlanta, literally everybody is like their own entrepreneur. They have their own business or something. There's something going on. They doing something, and
Yeah,
it's very inspiring and very amazing to just see that aspect within that specific community. Not saying that this does not happen within other spaces and environments. It's just that within those environments, it's something that is highly invigorated upon, to where it highlights kind of the stories that originate from HBCUs, and it puts in a more of a imprint, and it leaves a stamp on this earth, and for future generations to understand that don't limit yourself essentially to what you can do, what you have around you. So I definitely do think it's something that I can attest to, especially in my experience with working in higher education as well as in K through 12 education. It's a it's an experience that's eye opening, to seeing the different stories and different backgrounds of where people come from and how they can come into a community to achieve one mission. And going back to the aspect of community service, as you were saying, Iota Phi Theta, right? I'm part of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Give shout out to my chapter, Lambda Kappa chapter, and we value community service so much. It's one of our pillars, and culture for service, service for humanity. So I definitely think that's another aspect that people forget about when it comes to HBCU, is the whole aspect of putting your foot and step into the community, where people actually see your presence rather than just seeing a piece of paper. They actually see that human presence in there. So that's definitely something that I believe is important to continue advocating for, and something we should continue doing as people who are representing communities and representing ourselves, right?
hmm
So now for you, you know, last conversation we had, we was talking about following your own destination and how what it means to you personally. So let's kind of now shift the gear here. So how important is self-awareness in determining and pursuing your own destination?
I would definitely say like self-awareness, and even then just allow myself to follow my own path instead of following others, is what led me to achieve, like, so many things. So like I always feel like all throughout high school, I kind of always been an outlier, even in like middle school in a way. Yeah, I kind of always just been an outlier my entire life, and it's essentially because I kind of always like took things in from my own understanding, and always like formed my own opinion. Like I always kind of like cared more about what I thought about myself than like what others. Like I wasn't constantly looking for validation. I would, find that validation within myself and move on from there. So a lot of times, like if I get compliments on stuff, and if I feel like what I'm getting complimented on is subpar and it's something I'm still working to make, great, I'd be like, okay, cool, I know I'm making progress, but that isn't necessarily a cue to like stop working or to say like, oh yeah, that's good enough. Like, to me, I just think that that type of like integrity in a way, like,
That's a good. I'm glad you touched on that. Integrity.
yep. So like, I feel like that integrity in a way is what really helps with like, personal development and things like that. Because in a way too, like in order to be self-aware, you gotta be by yourself. Like you can't really figure out yourself if you're constantly like hanging out with people, or you're constantly in situations where you're not really like able to really like reflect and like really take into consideration like what your actions and stuff has like amounted to, because everything has a cause and effect, and sometimes you gotta take a break to realize like what did you do to like cause this effect, and like how this effect has pretty much affected your life.
Right. And that's a good. This leads us my follow up question to you. So, we live in a world of distractions, influences, and all these things where sometimes we forget the difference between motivation and discipline. How do you perceive one can stay true to their chosen destination?
You said how can one stay true to their
Yeah,
chosen
to their
destination?
to their chosen destination.
Hey, I would definitely say like in order to really know your true destination, you have to like, I guess you could say, be free within yourself. Like you really have to be willing to like let your soul speak from the bottom, like of itself. Like you just gotta let yourself like be passionate. You kind of have to let yourself feel like a knack for something. Like I always say, like in order to find your true purpose, some things in life are just gonna click to you. Like it can be a small conversation, it can be a lengthy conversation that's changed your overall perspective on life. Like I would even provide an example. Like recently, like a program I used to do in my freshman year of college called the Collective Success Network. It was meant for like providing professional development to like first gen low income college students, which is what I am. I recently came back to it. I attended a speaking engagement. I spoke at that, and then like I went to another networking event that was in Philly. And when I went back to Philadelphia, I ran into an old mentor of mine, and I was just talking to him about how life has been, how much progress I made, things like that. But at that point in time, my perspective was, continue putting in the work. Once I graduate or get close to graduating, make sure I got an offer that's gonna have me in like, either my cities of choice, which was like Houston or like, DC, or like any of those like big metro, like, black cities. And essentially, as I was talking to my old mentor, or mentor of the past, like let's not call the dude old, but essentially his conversation was, that's great to hear, but have you ever considered staying in Philadelphia? And when he said that to me, I was like, I mean, it's a thought. Like, I mean, my family is here, but it's like, at that point in time, I didn't feel like Philadelphia really had anything to offer me. And then he was just breaking things down to me. He was like, Philadelphia is a predominantly black city. Think of Atlanta. Like at one point in time, Philadelphia was 70% black, and now it's 40%. And like business wise, there's only like 3% or 4% of us that actually make up like the business ownership community out here in Philadelphia. And he was like, the main thing as to why Philadelphia is like kind of lacking in quality regarding the black experience is because a lot of the talent that comes from Philadelphia leaves Philadelphia and never comes back. And as he said that to me, I was like, dang, that's actually true. And then like when I kind of like examined things about like Philly, like as I mentioned, like, the public school education system could be a lot greater here than it is right now. And then it's like overall, like, of course the crack epidemic kind of made our community like a lot more like, split and like more individualistic. There went that, what I guess you could say was like that Southern hospitality went out the window inside of our current culture in Philly. So like now we kind of are just like, of course we always have been people, but us as Philadelphians or Black Philadelphians kind of just look at each other as like, yeah, like, you're a person, but you're like, and the way what I'm trying to phrase it as is like, we kind of look at each other as like, yes, you're black, and like, these are these people, because Philadelphia is a very multicultural city, but we don't look at each other as like, you're a black person. It's like, hey, you're someone else we're looking out for. You need anything, I got you. Let's work together, type thing, stuff like that. Because as with all the traveling I've been doing, going to all the programs that I've been accepted to, like the immersion programs, the conferences, things like that. HBCU student leadership conferences like NASAP, I kind of recognize how like the black experience and like even in a way black culture down south is a lot different, because as I mentioned, like the whole Southern hospitality, where people down south are a lot more like open to speaking to one another, really just speaking with you, striking up a conversation, like really just in a way like making you a part of their village. And up here we don't really do that like that, or we kind of frown at that. And I was just thinking like, dang, like what makes these communities strong and like I wouldn't even say prosperous and like, colorful in a sense, but like colorful in a way where it's like virtuous, is because they work together. They emphasize, a higher education. You're like, hey, go to college, go to college, go to college. But like up here in the city, we don't really talk about college. And even some people would even say college is a scam. But we all know, like, the people that think college is a scam didn't really go to college for college. So that's a whole sidebar.
I completely agree. And it's definitely important to really see those values first in people. I think that's the most important thing that we forget as human beings, is that we kind of look to define people first without really getting to know them. And I think it's important sometimes to really consider people's journey, no matter who they are. They can be black, white, Asian, Latino, whatever the hell they are. I think we should look past that sometimes and just look at the fact that each individual is unique in their own way, right? Now, I do think there are some misconceptions, though, when it comes to following your own path that I'd like to address and kind of clarify, and also I would like to ask you that question. But I think that it's important first to kind of get away of those misconceptions that we don't share. There's certain things we share as human beings. We all have feelings, and people always remember how you make them feel. People will remember what you give them and stuff like that, but how you make them feel will forever be ingrained in them, and that will either determine how they decide to follow their path. And as you shared when you were having that conversation with that mentor, what they said to you really made you feel a certain way and think a certain way, and it changed your perspective, and it kind of shifted your trajectory in how you approach certain events, certain programs, and how your perception is, right?
Yeah, because now I actually want to now I'm actually kind of considering staying in Philly for like a good portion of my career. Because like in general, I kind of like being at Cheney has definitely opened my eyes to what higher education is and what it can do for me. So I've mentioned eventually I want to come back and be the president of my university and shape it and mold it the way how I think that the school would most benefit from. But she was touching back on a question regarding how there's misconceptions like chasing your own journey and how you make other people feel. Actually, let me not assume the question that you're going to ask. Let you finish the question, but I just going on.
So the question is, are there misconceptions about following your own path that you'd like to address or clarify? What I mean by that, I mean it from a broader sense, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of, there's certain trenches we all have to walk through together as people, right? But there's also certain trenches we all have to walk through by ourselves. And that is what makes us unique as people, right? And those misconceptions is that people assume that just because somebody's going to college, they assume that's all they got, or that's all they're doing. Or because somebody doesn't go to college, they're a loser, or they're part of whatever. Somebody can not be going to college and be doing great things. Somebody can be doing the college and doing great things, or not doing great things. You kind of have to take away that misconception, it's kind of the whole aspect of don't judge a book by its cover.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are your thoughts on that and those misconceptions about the aspect of following your own path?
Yeah, I would say at the end of the day, everybody's journey is their own journey. Like I believe there's this word, and it's called Sonder, where it's pretty much the belief that everybody has like their own path in life that's as unique as ourselves, or like what we think of our own life. And it's just like at the end of the day, you have to be able to think for yourself. And sometimes you can have people that can really guide you the right way and just guide you along. So it's like when it really comes to making like those critical or crucial decisions for yourself, other people have already geared you toward that direction and have made it like, a lot easier to really navigate. But I would definitely say, like, for me, I don't really judge people who don't go to college. Like for me, I kind of like, I'm a first year low income college student, so like college, of course, I didn't really understand what it was going to bring to me besides extra classes. And since I'm kind of like a learning enthusiast, I didn't really have an issue with that. I just knew, like, in the core of my being, that with me going to college and me double majoring in computer science and business, since I want to be an entrepreneur, I think taking classes in business is definitely gonna make me a lot more like, you know, formal and like tangible of a person when it comes to operating and running the business. And then like with my computer science major, a lot of my ideas are like, relating to like, the digital atmosphere and like, creating like a bunch of apps and websites among many other things. And it's just like, of course, taking classes and that's gonna push me further. And since I'm like on campus, not only am I able to increase my study and knowledge about things in that area, and there's like a bunch of programs and organizations that's there strictly for college students to push you further into your field. It's like like it's like a treasure trove of information, and it's like overall, like, your college is really going to be an eye-opening experience, especially if you really push yourself out there to really expand and learn more. Because even now, it's just like compared to when I first got here, I never would have expected to know as much as I know, and I'm still learning. Like when you go to college, just like how they tell us, like how joining a fraternity is a lifetime commitment. Like when you go to college, in a way, you're kind of like a lifetime scholar. Like you're going to forever learn, especially if you're like, trying to move up in life. And to me, if I had like, I guess you could say greater confidence or a better sense of business savviness, yeah, if I was to find like a good paying job without college, I'm like, that probably would have been like 15 and maybe 20 if I'm lucky, or if I move up, I probably would have been able to come across information that's going to allow me to like, know how to like register my business underneath like the proper what's it called,
LLC or nonprofit.
Yeah, but it's even more in depth than that, because
tax code, you mean?
Yeah, like how there's like a 501(c) and like a 501(c) and things like that.
Yeah,
like the really like absolute technicalities of business, like things like that. It's like you can usually sometimes find that in books, but it's like overall going to college just gave me the better guidance for it. If somebody like just happens to have that knowledge, or they have a greater sense of intuition, where they're able to naturally find themselves around like people that can provide funding, people that can provide guidance, people that can really help you like really figure it out, then that's their life path. Because like for me, at the end of the day, I'm a come to a stop in like a couple more sentences, but essentially it's like just like how Microsoft was like, I guess you could say like founded in the garage of, what is the name, Bill Gates' garage with like his friend and whatnot, and like he kind of put that together. Or more so, let me use Amazon with like Jeff Bezos. Like, yeah, he put that together like in his garage and things like that. And it's like, hey, I'm kind of making like my next big like invention that the world uses. I might have to use college and like one of those like funding combines to get that funded. Cause it's just like for real, it's really not about the beginning. It's just about the end. Like, how do you get there is really what matters, or like, or more so like just getting there is what matters. It's not how you get there; it's just getting there.
I agree. And I definitely, to build upon your point about college, I definitely think college is more than just the academia. It's the network of people. They say it's not about who you know; it's about who knows you. That's the aspect of college that I think is very important that people forget about. Is you get the aspect of being exposed to people and professionals and developers and pursuers that have experience in these fields for people who are desiring to emerge. There is those outliers. If you was to, look at it statistically, there's definitely those outliers of people who are like just, geniuses or whatever. But I definitely think the aspect of college that makes it a unique experience is the network that you're able to develop, because your network is your net worth, technically. Who you know and who knows you does come in handy more often than just a $20 bill, So I think that's the whole aspect of the experience in college. And I definitely also, as well, going back to the conversation we are talking about HBCUs, that's also another thing I attest to the HBCU experience, is that it allows for a community that has experienced all these things within this country to have a connection and understanding that we are here because we have worked hard to be in this position, and we're going to continue leveling the ground and building a foundation for the future generation to allow ourselves to not fall back. And as you said, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. But throughout that process, there is a lot of things you got to do. It's like running the 800-meter race or the 400-meter race. You can start off well, but in the middle of the race, you can tear your hamstring. But how you gonna get back up to finish the race? Someone can be passing you, and that can mess up you with your vision. And it's all about how do you get to the end, right?
Right.
So definitely agree with that aspect of the experience as well as the academia. And now my follow-up question to you, right? Since Let me just go back. This is like a part two, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are those challenges one might face when embarking on a path that is kind of like less traveled? And how did you navigate those challenges? Because as you said in your background, in terms of how you got to where you're at now, you have faced adversity and you have faced challenges. Now, through those challenges, what has inspired you the most? Is it being motivated or being disciplined?
I would say it's kind of a combination of both. Like at the end of the day, you kind of have to find something that's like, like I wouldn't say like a life branch, but it's something that you can vow to like really aim and achieve. Like for me, what keeps me motivated and disciplined is just what I'm devoted to doing, which is giving back and like really being like your urban philanthropist. Because for me, I've like done a lot of research into like the Black experience and like learning about things such as like civil rights era, slavery, pre-slavery, and like what we were doing in Africa and our various great civilizations. Like really like understanding what is the Black experience in depth and what is even Black culture in a sense, and like what's really like what we're missing right now. How exactly kind of noticing how things could be a lot better, and like me just kind of saying like a lot of times in our community we kind of like can sometimes complain like this isn't there, this isn't that, but to me I'm kind of like, what, let me be a doer, like let me spread the wisdom and amazement that is like really knowing what like Blackness is. Because when you learn about like the folk tales and you learn about like other like cool great stories, like they're both fiction and nonfiction, you're just like, wow, like in a way I kind of feel like empowered, or I kind of feel like that strong sense of identity is what essentially like moves me. And like granted, the average person really doesn't know that much about like African culture outside of like hip hop, and we may know about like the civil rights history and slavery, but that will kind of be about it. It won't really be in depth. And for me, I'm like an intense visionary. I'm very creative. I have a bunch of ideas that I want to make a reality. I'm like, my mindset is just like, I can't stop right here, because if I stop right here, I'm not gonna be able to really like paint my canvas and really showcase the great picture that I want to show. So that's kind of about it in like in its simplest form. You just have to have something that's like giving you like a really hard and like unending reason as to like why you want to succeed. Like, of course, when it comes to like traveling your own path, you have to be original. And sometimes you're gonna like, I guess you could say, like, run into a dead end. You have to like back out of that dead end and like continue pushing forward. Like, you just have to sometimes just keep on traveling that path, even if you're not really sure when and where you're going to get to that destination. Like, you just have to travel it. Like, sometimes they can say, like, you know, even if something's like, a mile away, one step is closer to it than if you weren't to take that step. It's essentially that.
Mm, that's deep, man. That's deep, man. Um, I really appreciate you just sharing this perspective. And as we come to a wrap here, I'm kind of crunched on time right now today, but it's going to be a part 3. Everybody out there listening, don't worry. This conversation is not stopping here today. This conversation is following through to 2024, and 2025, whatever. We're going to continue speaking on this, and not just speaking, but actually taking action into it, because we're going to walk it like we talk it. So as we come to a conclusion here, Alan, any success stories or notable achievements that you are proud of yourself, or anything that you think in the world that's going on that you think that people should put more effort into doing?
Uh well, of course I'm gonna have to say free Palestine, but aside from that, I would say like just key stories. I would kind of say like just do passive research into like, you know, the various cultural significance of your own community, and like, mainly just speaking from the Black perspective, like the thing that you'll learn are very eye-opening, just knowing yourself culturally. And it's not like, I don't want to say like hip-hop isn't real Black culture, but in a way it's like we don't really own it, and it's like we don't really curate our own messages in a way. So it's like, not only that, we just have created so many different music forms and cultures that we only give attention to one big culture, and a lot of other ones really come from like, the same branch, but we just don't observe it because, sometimes we kind of just get stuck on looking at, something that's familiar and just sticking with what's familiar. But like, just overall, I'm just proud of myself for being where I'm at. I come a long way, an extremely long way at that, and I'm still going further. And for me, I'm definitely making sure that like, I graduate with a 3.5 or higher. I'm not actually, let's say like 3.6. I think I can do that. But overall, I'm just dedicated to like really becoming like an academia. Like, now that I actually know like, what it is in a greater sense than just like what it is in the brief sense, it's like, oh wow, like I really want to make sure that, at least every day I'm taking 30 minutes to research this. Like, even for my business ideas that I mentioned in the last episode, I believe, like
Mm-hmm.
I was making sure that I'm taking the time out to at least take 10 to 15 minutes to update like my notes about what I want to do with this business, because the main two ones that I'm trying to do right now before I graduate is making sure that I at least have like version 1 fleshed out for like, the Cheney Counterculture Club and the Bounce brand, which was the sports brand I may have mentioned last time.
Okay. Um, yeah, I remember you mentioning those things, and these are the fact that they're already in the process of implementation and adoption, and then now it's just time to put it out there and make it available to people. All I can say is, in that process, in that journey, don't forget to be yourself. And I think that's one of the most important things when it comes to getting to that goal that people are desiring, is always remember, if you're not authentic with yourself, you can't be authentic with others. So don't be afraid to use your voice to get there. And I definitely 100% can see the vision and the ambition and the aspiration. And all you can do now is control what you can control and control your own narrative, because nobody else can do that for you. So, any last words you want to share to the listeners out there, Alan? Let them know what's next, what's coming up, or any words of wisdom?
I would just say, like, as you mentioned, like, really listen to yourself, stay true to yourself, and be able to speak up for yourself. Like, honestly, in a way, honesty, though, as human beings, we're gifted the ability to, like, lie, deceive, manipulate. When you're really honest, and, like, since honesty is, like, a generally pure trait, in a way, it kind of grants you a pure life. Like, because we're kind of doing things and, like, really, like, straightforward, truthful, transparent sense. There's no deception. Under that, I'm able to be happy. Like, I'm able to, like, not only create happiness for myself, but create happiness for others. And it's just like, we make not only yourself happy, but other people happy. You just feel like enlightened. Like, I feel great, and I feel like all of us can really feel great from, like, just doing that. Like, essentially, like, when you make your village happy, that sense of, like, satisfaction, like, is even higher. And it's not even say, like, oh, you should, like, you should go out your way to make people happy so that you can feel happy. But it's more so, like, just stay true to yourself. And, like, honesty comes in many forms. So live an honest life.
I completely agree. As y'all heard it from him. And as we always say on this podcast, and to all our listeners out there, don't forget to like, subscribe, share. This is a great opportunity for y'all to take some pieces of gems, and be on the lookout for another episode coming out soon with Mr. Alan D. Graham III. Am I saying that right?
Yep, I just say Alan Graham III. The D is silent, but I just kind of have, like, my name spelled like that as a signature, more so than, like,
Gotcha.
my full like name, because, like, I have a middle name, but it's just so,
Gotcha.
like, when a job application or, like, you're looking at something, you see my name, you're more likely to, like, really look at it than, like, skim over it. Feel it's just a regular 2-word name.
Gotcha. Well, y'all heard it from him the best. Be on the lookout for this episode. And as we always say on this podcast, pursue your dream, seize the day. Peace out.
Peace.